after a lovely, relaxing morning in my studio, painting just a few cards, then after lunch, I thought it would be a good time to do a big washing of fleece. This is the dark brown fleece from the Barnyard Farm over in Newport, North Carolina, just about an hour from me. Keep on picking at it because it's got so much stuff in it. I did 3 different buckets of fiber. This was all one large bucket here. That was quite a lot. I need this brown to add to the nut brown roving to make a sweater because the nut brown roving on its own, that huge bag of roving, was not enough for the sweater I want to make, and I'm not going to try to patch my way through that project. I want to do a real good job. So I am going to clean this up, and when it's dry I'm going to weigh it. If this is, I don't think this will be the same amount of yarn, of fiber, as the nut brown roving bag, but that's kind of what I'm shooting for. I need that much again. This will add some really gorgeous color, I think, to the sweater. But I think when I get it all spun up, it'll be a little bit browner than the nut brown roving, but not a lot. And all this will all blend together. There's a little bit of gray in there, and dark brown, and this gorgeous reddy brown. I just love this stuff. I think it's beautiful to look at. Sometimes I think it kind of ruins it to turn it into yarn and a sweater. I like it just the way it is. Okay, so that's what I'm doing now. And now that it's drying outside on these 2 screens on a beautiful, dry, breezy day, we're going to hope that it doesn't blow off the porch. I have a rock right there, and I have that leg wedged in there, and I have my heavy concrete pumpkin sitting on this one. Hopefully, probably the screens will stay, but the fiber will blow down the deck. That's very possible. Anyway, I'm going to go back inside and have a little rest and come and check on it later. My hens are having a sun bath, and they're lying over on their side. Henny Penny started it right there with her wings spread out. Look at all of them, laying down and spreading out their wings. Painting like this with so much concentration is one of the very few things that makes me forget to eat. So my coffee is cold, and I've left a crust of toast for breakfast. Good morning, everybody out there in YouTube land. Well, I don't have a lot to share this week, partly because I haven't sold a lot at the market the last 2 weeks, and so I haven't had to make things very much. That we got totally rained out this past Saturday, and the previous Saturday was just slow. Anyway, but I am opening some cards I just got back from the printers, and I thought I would share them with you. Now, the first one is this one. Isn't he just cute? I don't know, there's something about his little eye. They did, my printer, I'm getting less and less satisfied with my printer. You can see that they chopped one of his little toes off the bottom. I know that there was more space than that. I think there was also more space at the top. So I I really don't know how that happened. I may have to go back and check my original digital image I sent them. A dear friend of mine decided to buy the original card for this. She just fell in love with that little seagull. And she wants some packs for her daughters too. So I only got 50 of those. And then this next one is a sailboat. It's a sailboat card that I painted for a friend. This is her sailboat, her and her husband's sailboat. Let me go that way. So here is, now this one is a little funky. There's that one. Okay, so this is kind of a special sailboat that they own. It's called a Dickerson. I'm pretty sure it's a wooden sailboat. Don't quote me on that. But it's called the Southern Cross, and there's not many like it. Dickerson is kind of a, I think there's a limited number of them. And maybe this was the original one. I don't know. The Southern Cross is an important boat for whatever reason, and they still cruise all up and down the Atlantic coast on it. And they live here in the little town Oriental that's near me. So anyway, my friend asked me if I would paint this for her. It was just a card, a 5x7 card, because they were living aboard and that she wanted something small that she could keep on board. So I did, but I took a scan or a photo or something. I'm looking at that background on it and thinking I probably took a photo because it's not, it's just a little dark. The clouds are kind of, they have that buff color that, anyway, I don't know what I did, but I did get my printers to make this. They did a pretty decent job. They struggled with the color. I think I may be changing to another printer because these folks, although I liked them for years, they're kind of disorganized. So those are my two cards that I am packaging up today. I have done some painting. I'm pressing these. I've got this big old book. I used to collect children's books. I still have them all. I just don't buy them anymore as much. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should show you the children's books I bought this past week. Maybe I'll tell you about that. That might be fun. Anyway, I'm pressing inside this. This is kind of a heavy book, and it's nice and big, so I'm pressing some pieces. I'll show you the successes and failures of my painting endeavors. I already showed you this one. And those cards have sold fairly well. And one lady, when I told her that I had an original that was a 9x12, she was like, "Can I buy that?" I was like, I don't know if I want to sell it or not. Now this one, I would say that this was a failure. I'm just not pleased with it. Yeah, it's supposed to be an iris. I get irises and lilies mixed up. This is an iris. Tell me this is an iris? I think so. I don't know. I think it's because they both have 4 letters and they both have eyes in them. My brain is very fixated on words and how they're spelled. That's just something my brain does, and so I get words mixed up like that. Anyway, I struggled to get the proportions right. My sketch at the beginning, I think, was off. It was too tall here, or I'm just struggling to get the 3-dimensional quality of it. And with watercolor, you don't want to keep going. If you're struggling, you just need to kind of stop and move on to something else. Now the next one turned out pretty well. I got the inspiration from this from a reel on Instagram I was watching. It was an advertisement for, I forget what they call them. They're little fairy lights. They have a base and a little solar panel, and then they have these little 4 or 5 lights that stick up and flop around. And they were showing all the different places you could put them. And one that only lasted just a part of the reel for like maybe 3 seconds was this image of these little children walking into a forest at night, and these lights were in front of them, leading them into the dark woods. And I was like, oh, that looks like a fairy forest, and these children are going in. So I found the reel, I clicked it so it would stop on that image, and then I just to get the feel for it. So this is how it turned out. I wanted to get the idea of the children going into the dark wood here, but it's not scary really, because look at all the fairy lights going in front of them. And there's 3 little girls here they're actually fairies because they've got their wings too. And one of them is leading a younger one. But I loved the lights were hard to do. I had to do all those in negative kind of painting, where you leave the white and paint around it and try not to get too many marks. And I like how the trees finally turned out. I went and worked on them more later. And I think I'm stopping there. I'm not going to do any more, or I'm likely to ruin it. But I was pretty pleased with that. So these are being pressed flat in this book, and we will hope that I don't forget that they're there, which I quite often do. I'll put, especially paintings, I'll put them somewhere and then forget that they're there. And then a year later, I'm like, oh, what's this doing in this book? So today I'm going to package up these cards to take to the farmer's market on Saturday, hopefully, if it doesn't rain. The only other thing I'm doing is on my spinning wheel back here, I'm still spinning. I finished all the nut brown roving, and now I'm doing some of the dark brown from the Barnyard Farm. That's not a Cheviot, that was the Shetland. Oh, I could show you this. I've had these hanging around forever, wanting to show you this. So the Barnyard Farm, I got 2 fleeces in bags, and you remember one of them, they were both Shetland crossed with Black Welsh Mountain. And the white was so long. Now this has not been cleaned, so it doesn't look as white as it will. But this, if I don't stretch it, it's 7 inches. If I did stretch it, it would be like 8 inches. But it's so long. And then this is the dark brown. This is what I'm spinning right now. And it's about 3 inches, which is not bad. But, you know, it's totally different to spin. It takes totally different spinning habits and methods to spin something this long than to spin something this long, because you have to really you're trying to separate the fibers, and in order to get these to separate from each other, you have to really keep your hands pretty far apart. Anyway, I thought I would just show you that. This is the one I'm working on right now. I'm hoping that it will give me enough to make a nice long sleeve sweater. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about this. I'll call it the brown sweater. Okay, now you remember that I knit this multicolored sweater, kind of a stripy sweater with my homespun. That was 2 or 3 years ago, and maybe I'll put a link up here soon to one of those videos. And I did have a pattern I was following for that, and I went back and found it. It wasn't very useful. The neck ended up being too big, and the sleeves didn't work. It's a little bit too big around. Anyway, the sweater I really wanted it to look like was one that Kate Jackson wears. It's a kind of a green sweater that she made with her homespun. And finally, I found the Kate Jackson video where she talks about that sweater a little bit more and shared a link to the pattern she used. And I'm going to put that up here, okay, so that you can go look at that video and you can see what her sweater looked like, okay? And it's the same thing, knit down, raglan sleeves, no stitching up, no sewing up. Okay, so here is my nut brown roving, and maybe I'll do a link to something that the spinning I did for that. This nut brown roving from that bag, this is all of it. It amounted to 357 grams when I weigh it. And that supposedly is equivalent to 784 yards of yarn. 784, okay? The pattern calls for 1,500 yards of yarn. So about twice as much, almost twice as much as what I've got. Well, that was a huge bag of roving. Or how long do I have to spin and ply to get the yarn that I need to make this? So I got the Shetland Black Welsh Mountain out. I thought, well, I'll use this. I have tons of it, and I've been working on that. Now, this is the color. The light in here is not the best. Let's see, they're both a nice dark brown, but they're not the same dark brown. But I think I could put those together and they would do really well. This is the first bobbin I have of this, and I'm working on the second bobbin. I'm cleaning it as I go, and this is, you know, it's a long process. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why don't we just go buy a sweater at the store? It's hard to say. But the thing that Kate Jackson mentioned on the video that I mentioned earlier, she said that when she started knitting with this pattern with her homespun, she followed the pattern. And when she, when she got further down into the body, she realized that it was big enough to be a horse blanket. It was just huge. It was twice as big as what she needed. I don't know if she said that specifically, but it was very, very large. So she pulled out the whole thing and she really looked at her gauge and she did a lot smaller. She still kind of used the pattern as a guide, but she's done a lot more knitting of sweaters than I have. So she probably has more good sense about this. But she did end up with a sweater that fit her well. Well, see, I'm wondering, maybe 784 yards is enough. What if I do all of this extra and it is just extra that I don't need? Should I go ahead and start the sweater? But at what point in the sweater am I going to change from one color to another? That would look terrible. I really kind of don't know what to do about it. If you have any ideas, let me know. Most people would probably say follow the pattern, except for that Kate's already told me that the pattern doesn't seem to be accurate. Now, why would I use that pattern? Well, upon her advice, I promptly went over to Ravelry, found that pattern that she used, and I bought it for $7, which is not much. But I feel like, and it has good reviews, so I feel like I should be able to use it. So I don't know. Anyway, I am very pleased with, I love the color of this stuff. It is pretty gorgeous. This is much more uniform brown. This, because it's the whole fleece, I don't know. I guess maybe that was a whole fleece too, but there's a whole lot more variety in there, and I just think it's so gorgeous. I'm spinning it fairly chunky and then plying it. It's a 2-ply. It's exactly the same thing that I did with this. This came to me in roving. This came to me obviously in the raw fleece, the whole fleece. So if you have any ideas about what I should do about this, leave a comment. If you think I should go ahead and just start knitting the pattern with what I have here and see how it goes, or do you think I should go ahead and do up another 750 yards of this, which would take me a long time because I'm not starting from the roving, I'm starting from the dirty fleece. Or if you have any other ideas, let me know. Maybe I should go look for reviews and comments in more detail on that pattern and see if I can find anything on that. Oh, the other thing I thought about, but this will take me some time, the stripy sweater from several years ago. One thing I could do with that is to put a collar on it. It never occurred to me to do that, but the collar is a little bit too big still, and I tried cinching it up, pulling it up. But if I put a collar on it, the neck opening, I'm sorry, is too big on that. But if I put a collar on it, like a little round collar, then it would make it warmer around the neck, and it might make it look better and kind of close it up a little bit. All right, I know this is a hodgepodge. I apologize. But I just wanted to try to get some insight from y'all about how to proceed with my brown yarn. Thanks. Bye.